My name is Lars Bergendahl, and I'm devoted to LTE. And I'm going to talk a little bit of the massive success and growth of LTE so far, and about 5 possibilities to make it even greater. As I mentioned, I started in 2007, which is not a long time ago, with 2 empty hands and about 2 tons of patents. And it was not until year 2009 we had a real genuine standard coming out of 3GPP. In 2010, there was a first network being launched. That was in Stockholm, Telia. It had 153 base stations, and they can each of them could accommodate 4 simultaneous users. Just. But we've gone a long way since then. Now there are 156 launched networks in 67 countries, carrying live LTE traffic on all continents except Arctic and Antarctica, but I'm working on that as well. And all those subscribers, they're a bit unevenly distributed. Today it's 86 million subscribers globally. It's been anticipated in 5 years' time to be 1.6 billion. But it's a little bit unfair. In US and Canada, it's more than 50% of the subscribers. Japan, Korea, and rest of Asia, around 40%. And where are we in Europe? We have a measly 4.4% of the LTE business today. And why is that? Well, I think the terminal is a little bit to blame about that, but I'll come back to that. The biggest subscribers, the growth of subscribers is in these 10 operators. As you can see, it's US and Japan and Korea again who are having the growth. And we're talking massive traffic. For instance, Verizon, every day they have about 15 terabytes of traffic. And Ericsson are actually running about 50% of all of the global traffic today, in both infrastructure and RAN network. But it's not only megabytes, it's also profit. Because all these operators have business cases that make them profitable. And we take one case here, which is LG Plus in Korea. They launched their network by Christmas time 2011. And by last Christmas, well, first of all, the ARPU, the average usage of the subscribers, has grown 15%. The subscribers has grown almost 7%, which is much in 1 year time. And that was mainly because of the coverage, because the radios in LTE are so much more efficient than the other technologies, GSM and wideband and CDMA. 43% of the subscribers has already migrated to LTE. And 10% of those are not using any other technology. They're also using voice over LTE. So their terminals never touch any other type of technology, not even Wi-Fi, even if Wi-Fi is also could be combined with LTE. And they're making profit. Having started with an unlimited all-you-can-eat kind of tariff, they're now a tiered tariff, and they have a healthy growth. So it can be done. And why is that? Well, I like to say that the main reason is the impact of having a genuine ecosystem from day one. Even in 2007, when I started, we convinced all the terminal vendors or platform vendors that they had to invest in R&D into this new technology, even if it was a long time before they can get any revenues. And actually did. So today, thanks to our partnering with the terminal vendors, all of them, there are 20 different spectrum bands being supported end-to-end globally. We have now terminals that are combining FDD and TDD technology. And that opens up another opportunity, because there's a lot of licensed TDD spectrum globally that people just can't find any use of. But I will come back to possibilities of that. In 2010, there was only one band possible per each unit, and that meant dongles. And dongles has been the terminal preferably used in Europe so far, and that doesn't have the same growth as the smartphones does. So that's one of the reasons that there's so very few subscribers in UK, despite there are a few networks. In 2011 there was 3 bands, okay, so then you could have GSM, you can have wideband, WCDMA, and you could have LTE in one phone, great. 2012 it was 5, so then you could actually travel somewhere as well. And now, because of new technology going into the platform, this year and next we will have up to 20 bands in one terminal, different. And that opens up for global roaming, if you can afford that, of course, for the tariffs, but you can actually use the LTE across the globe. So this is something that is happening as we speak. And that gives us an evolution of the mobile broadband. Taking 2 examples here, HSPA and the LTE. And there's many KPIs that are worthwhile, but I just take the speed. And here you can see that HSPA will end with around 300 megabit per second, and LTE by year 2016 or 18 we will have infrastructure that can handle up to 1 gigabyte per second. And you know as well as I do, well, you rarely get that kind of performance unless you decide to live under antenna. But still, if you're looking in 2013, the typical users having downlink 10 to 100 megabit per second on a mobile, or downlink 5 to 50, and that can take a long way actually. And people have noticed, so those who are actually starting to use LTE phones or communication, mobile communication, they never turn back. Now we're coming into a little bit of a vision, and there's 5 possibilities to make it even greater. The vision is to have one network with all technologies and all frequency bands served by the same equipment. And possibility number 1, that is carrier aggregation. That is also named LTE Advanced. The technology is that you exploit the fragmented different spectrums you have and you combine them. By that you get higher bandwidth, and that gives you a higher data rate. Because spectrum is the key for success. There's 3 ways of doing it. Interband aggregation, that is if you have different spectrum bands like 900 megahertz or 1800 megahertz, you can actually combine them to one single entity. And today 3GPP has introduced 21 combinations and 13 coming in the release coming out after this summer. There's intraband aggregation, which is the same band, but you have different parts of it. You can, if they are continuous, you can actually put them together. Intraband, then you can even pull together those who are apart from each other. Those are not so popular, but we can now see there is a race going on right now to launch this. And I believe by mid-2013, the infrastructure is already there. The first chipsets and terminals is coming out in that time. It will be introduced. But again, the frequency selections of the terminals are driven by the early customers. And again, it will not be Europe, it will be USA, it will be Korea and Japan. The second way to do this, of course, is for Europe. That is to have an evolution. Today, traditionally, you have 900 megahertz and 1800 megahertz for GSM, and you have HSPA on 2100 megahertz, band 7. But you can code enough parts of those if traffic goes down, and combine that with the European spectrums we have. The band 20, 800 megahertz, which is present here in the UK. You have the 2600 megahertz, band 7. And you can combine, for instance, you can code enough 1800 and putting that together with LTE and combine that with carrier aggregation. You got very competitive bandwidth and data speeds. I think this will happen. Technology as such, the eNodeBs, base stations, they already have this combined technology. You can combine any type of GSM, wideband, CDMA, Wi-Fi, LTE in the same equipment. So you don't really need to go out on site to change those spectrum frequencies. Then the second possibility I'm going to talk about is interworking LTE and FDD. The opportunity to make a network using both of these assets. You can mix and match them. You can, for instance, in a city center, add TDD for capacity in some areas, if you have that spectrum available. You can have load balancing between the technologies and handoff between them, back and forth. And this is now reality. Before Christmas 2012, less than 5 months ago, it was launched in China Mobile in Hong Kong. So the network running there, together with them, is both FDD and TDD in the same base station and the same terminals. And they have also even started up international roaming with Australia. That's the only network that can do that. It's Telstra in Australia and China Mobile in Hong Kong. There's lots of TDD spectrum available. I think operators here in the UK, for instance, have them. There's a lot been launched in many areas right now. In UK, you have UK BROADBAND using the old WiMAX spectrum. I think they have networks in Swindon, I think London, Scunthorpe, and someplace more. And now it can be expanded. The third opportunity or possibility, that is to rethink the coverage. Previously, when you talk about coverage for a cell, it's maybe mainly based on voice or data. Now, as an operator, you have to think about who are your target groups. Because every app in your terminal has its own coverage. So if you have users that are or apps based on video streaming, you have to think again. You have to have a very tight grid for that. In Korea, for instance, in Seoul, the grid is 120 meters. They have very aggressive usage. There's many features that can actually support this. I'm just going to mention one, and that's a combined cell. There's a lot of talk right now about heterogeneous networks and small cells. And small cells has been mentioned as being the best thing since sliced bread. But it isn't on its own. For they are also creating interference, which means that negates the coverage benefits you get. One way is to use a combined cell where the macro is linked with a number of small cells working as one entity. That gives you the coverage boost and also seamless mobility. One example is, for instance, if you're working in an office building, you're covered by a small cell in that building. When you walk out of the square, you automatically are handed over into the macro cell with that power boost and that range. And maybe you go across the street for a restaurant and there's another small cell picking it up. And it's very efficient working like this. The small radio units transmits wherever you need them. And Ericsson is not promoting, well, we are not selling small cells. We're selling Ubiquitous, which is a British band, they're small cells, which has now been acquired by Cisco, by the way. But we do provide the software, the infrastructure software to actually accommodate it. So we are actually the biggest software provider for that one. The fourth possibility is voice over LTE. Many operators actually thinking about having just a network in the future, maybe 5 years from now, with only one technology in it, and that is LTE. I mentioned previously that 10% of the Korean users are using that, voice over LTE. The performance is such that is 99.9 service accessibility, and drop calls are 0.2%, which is so it makes it very competitive to GSM, wideband, etc. And it's selling this service, like high definition. And why would you need high definition voice? Well, this is a freely translated commercial in Korea. 5 key high definition voice needs: sharing feelings, intimate and emotionally charged conversation with close friends and family. To me, that sounds a little bit like an adult chat line, but it's selling very well. And for instance, and doing business. Yeah, everybody who's done business in Korea knows you have to be very loud and very articulate to be heard. So, yeah, it makes sense. And this is a premium service. We can see it expanding. It's now just been launched in the US as well. The fifth possibility I was going to talk about is shared networks. Shared networks as such is not a new thing that's been done before, but in LTE it opens up more opportunities. There's a lot of ways you can actually conduct this. We have multi-operator core networks, MOCN, which we launched in February in Japan, between SoftBank, EXS, and Wilcom, 3 operators in the same networks. And we now are planning to do the same in US together with Sprint, Clearwire, and then it's a bit of twist now whether it will be SoftBank or it will be Dish, because they're competing and overbidding each other, buying each other. And in UK, we have something called multi-operator RAN, which is called MORAN. Be very careful when you pronounce it. And this is now being worked in UK, as I mentioned. It's O2, Telefonica, and Vodafone. Should be launched sometime during the year here. But in many areas as well, including Russia. In Russia, it's so that they have 17 operators, but they only have 4 licenses. So Mr. Putin has told them that you others, you didn't get a license, you had to be sharing. And the opportunities you have here, that is that you can actually, don't only for cost cutting, but you can also open it up if you have the spectrum, like a hotel for OBN customers, and you can have like a warehouse wholesale. In Australia, there's one operator who's actually doing that. They're selling it out to different retailers. The way it's working, you have a backhaul cloud, and the operators, they have their own core network. They can use it for some of the areas where they have their own eNode B, so base stations, and then you can have combined in other places. This in turn opens up a little bit of for your imagination. And a possibility is to expand that cloud into a software-defined network instead, where the operators share virtual core nodes and just buy the time from whoever got the resources available. There is a consortium now being opened called Open Daylight, where Ericsson is part of it, and Cisco, and just everybody's in that now, trying to discuss what kind of service-defined networks are there. And one possibility is not being talked about. I'm not sure whether this will happen, but it is if you take away also the digital parts, digital units in a base station, and put that into the cloud. You can have it all being virtual nodes, and you only have a software-defined radius in the network with a wide bandwidth, and it can work on any spectrum you like it to at any time. And the operators could just concentrate on actually what kind of offers are we going to give to our subscribers, and selling the terminals in the shops. And the whole nationwide network for all operators could be run by one entity, like Ericsson, like we did in the Olympic Games here in London last summer. This is just an imagination. It may not happen, but LTE That is the art of possibilities, and this is just one of them. Finally, I said we started with 2 empty hands. Well, now, 3 years later, we got quite a handful. This is the market shares in the global arena right now for LTE radio networks. As you can see, we have about more than the number 2 and number 3 together. And if you pull in the core networks, it's actually more than 45 than 35%. So I'm going to end this session with giving you 3 numbers to remember. 1. And that's the number of eNode Bs delivered every 4th minute during 2012 from Ericsson. 100. That is Ericsson commercial LTE contracts globally of the 156 launched. In fact, it's 103 to be more exact. And 100,000. And that is the LTE base stations, commercial, operational today. The exact number is 113,000. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time and your patience, and I'm happy to answer, or try to answer, any question.
What happened to him?
The people on the webcast don't really want to listen. Who are you?
I'm getting to it, Patrick. My name's Patrick Gilmore from... I just wondered, on HD Voice, do you actually see customers paying more for it, or do you see people giving it away as part of a bigger deal?
I've seen both of them. In fact, all terminal vendors today, they're using one single chip. So in US or in Asia, no terminals are sold without having LTE capability. And the price now is very similar. The cost, I'd say. Then you can have different ways of getting paid for it. But in Korea, for instance, people paid premium for it, but not necessarily so.
And second question, do you think one of the big concerns I've got is Shannon's law? So where we kind of run out of bandwidth in the spectral space. Just talking about your bandwidth predictions, up to 1 gig. What sort of infrastructure challenges will Shannon's law give us? Because it looks very challenging to do 1 gig kind of everywhere at the volume of bandwidth growth that we kind of see in the network today. Yes, it is challenging, of course, and you need a lot of spectrum. And spectrum is king globally. And you can, in US, the government are selling, even the guard bands they're selling now, just to both to get revenues, but also to get the growth in the industry. I'm actually Neil McRae from BT. Okay. Just in case you're wondering.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.